So welcome back to the Conversations with series on the SWAU official channel. My name's Brian, your host, and this week we've got a great guest. Literally, you may have seen him in your favorite movie, but by the power of movie making, he is normally in disguise. It's a wonderful stunt performer and coordinator, Daniel Stevens. Daniel, welcome to the show, sir.
Hey, Brian, thanks for having me.
And you know what? I was really shocked that you're Australian and, all this stuff. For some reason, I thought that you were going to be American. And then I looked at your IMDb, and in true style, every successful person in Hollywood has started at Home and Away at some point.
Oh,
which is awesome to see that you started in Home and Away, as well as many other great actors out there. You've doubled for so many great guys out there, from Hugh Jackman, Chris Evans, Ryan Reynolds, Chris Pratt, tons. But we're going to dive into Deadpool and Wolverine very, very soon. But as I mentioned, looking at your IMDb, it's jaw-dropping to see how much work you've actually done so far in the industry. But what got you into stunt work? What on earth made you decide, you know what, I want to throw myself out of windows and crash cars? I mean, why?
Well, it's funny you say throw yourself out of windows. I mean, I grew up just basically doing what you would call extreme sports, I guess, like mountain bike racing, rock climbing, surfing, that kind of thing. And then, I don't know, just very physical person. Then eventually, I didn't even know stunts was a job. But then one day I was watching a behind the scenes of a Bond film. I think it was, GoldenEye or something. And they showed the behind the scenes, and they had a guy jump through a window and land in a military truck. And then he stood up, and it wasn't Pierce Brosnan. And I'm like, whoa, who is that guy? I want to be that guy. I want to jump through the windows. I don't want to be talking on camera and acting and stuff. Like, I want to be the physical guy. And then, so from there, I discovered stunts was actually a thing, and I could use my skills and focus on that. And that's what I aimed at. And here I am.
So when you started out in the industry, did you have a plan in place in what you wanted to achieve? Because you've achieved so much so far, but is there like an end goal, sort of that shining moment for yourself that you want to get to?
Well, yeah, I mean, the dream is to definitely be doubling a big A-list actor. But when I started out, the dream was just to get any job I could. And like you said, Home and Away, like back in the day, any days I got on Home and Away were the greatest thing ever. Which is funny because Americans don't even know what that show is, but it's and
it's still going strong to this day, which I'm really amazed at. So any Americans that are watching this channel, it's a series that's gone on for decades. That and Neighbours, and it's sort of the backbone of Australian TV, and it's still going now. And I'm really surprised that they've still got storylines to go. But again, I haven't watched it for years, to be fair, but it's still going strong. Can you remember your very first stunt that you actually did?
Yeah, the first stunt I ever did was probably one of the worst jobs I ever did. It was a Volkswagen commercial, and I actually doubled for a woman. It was literally a mountain bike jump. They wanted someone to do a big trick on a mountain bike, and back then I had just got qualified to do stunts in Australia, which you actually have to do in Australia. You have to get qualified, whereas in the US, you've just got to get into the Screen Actors Guild and you can say you're a stunt person. So I'd been graded in Australia and desperate for any job I can get, and I way oversold myself because, when I was mountain biking, I was a cross-country racer. I wasn't a trick-doing kind of guy, but I just oversold myself, said, I can do a huge trick on this thing. It's going to be amazing. I was obviously a lot skinnier back then. I wasn't in superhero mode, so I could kind of double for a woman. But I just couldn't do the trick they wanted on the day, and it was just terrible. And word got around in the industry, oh, you're the guy that can't ride a bike. And I was like, lesson learned. Do not ever oversell myself. Always been humble since then and under promise and over deliver rather than the other way around.
I mean, I am sure there are many people out there that have lied on their resume and what they can do. I mean, I did a TV show over in the UK called Peak Practice, and part of that job was to ride a dirt bike off the scene. I've never rode a bike before in my whole life, And
Oh wow.
literally 2 days before, I had to learn how to ride a bike, and literally I was bricking it. But I managed it. I faked it. That's all I can say. And it's funny you say that you doubled for a woman, because how times have changed now, where we're seeing such amazing stunt performers that are women, really making their stamp on the industry, which I think is wonderful to see. And it's crazy to think back in the day, it was men, as you said, dressed up as the women doing the stunts, which is just crazy.
Yeah, I mean that's just it was the way it went back then, and I mean now it still can happen occasionally, but it'd have to be such a specific skill
Mm.
that there's nobody that can fit that mold. But it's really tough. But nowadays there's so many more people training in all these different areas that you can usually find somebody to do the job extremely well.
I mean, you've done extremely well in the industry today, and I know there's going to be people watching this interview thinking, I would love to have a go at being a stunt performer. It's not as easy as we see it on the behind scenes. There's lots of principles you've got to master. But what makes for a good stunt performer?
Well, I mean, like you said, every time I meet somebody, they're always like, "Oh, I want to do stunts. That's something I always wanted to do." But I'm like, "Yeah, it's not as easy as what you think it is." Like, you might see a film and see somebody take a wreck, and you're like, "Oh, wow, that's kind of gnarly. Maybe that hurt, but I think I could do it." But hitting the ground that one time that makes it on camera is not what actually went into it, and you got to be able to do that same action 10, 20, maybe 30 times and get back up and do it with the exact same energy. There was one time I had to run and jump through a window, and the window didn't break. And so, like, it's not like, even though it's in a movie, it's not like in movies. You can't just run and jump through windows. Like, those things are solid. And because the special effects rig didn't work, the window didn't break. And so then they replaced their little pyro popper thing to break the glass. And so then take two is you've got to be in character, ready to jump through the window and trust this thing that just failed on you, where you basically ran into a solid wall. And now you have to do the performance the second time and have complete trust that it's going to work this time. Like, it's a different mentality than what most people are used to. And a lot of people think that being a stunt person is being fearless, which is not. It's about controlling your fear and channeling it and knowing your limits and knowing what you can do, even though you may be like super high on a building or about to do something extremely dangerous and your brain is telling you, do not do this. It's the ability to have your conscious mind focus and do the thing that you know is physically possible.
Mm. And this is why I feel that there needs to be more love for the stunt community, because when we talk about the Oscars and there's no Oscars for stunt performers, I've had this conversation with many stunt performers and coordinators in the past, and it's shocking to think the amount of work that you put yourself through, the amount of training and everything like that. And what I like to see now is that there's a lot more love towards the stunt community with the behind the scenes, with acknowledgement, which is I just think is fantastic. It really, really is. But how difficult was it to actually get to where you are now? Your journey, has it been quite easy for you, or has it been a uphill slog? Have you had to hustle your way to where you are now?
I mean, it's definitely been a slog. I am still surprised when I look on IMDb and I see all my credits. I still feel like the struggling stuntman my whole career. It's just, I just never get complacent with it. There were so many years of struggle, especially in Australia. The industry there is so small. And I remember when I first got graded and a stunt coordinator told me it's going to take you at least 5 years to be doing this as a full-time job. And I'm like, I'll be fine. I'll be working straight away. And it was literally that. It would be, I was still working. I was working in a bicycle shop and then working clothing retail stuff to pay the bills. And then anytime I could get a job, like literally, home and away, a day here, a day there. It's a long process. It's not something that happens overnight. And then for me, I was in Australia and I mean, I thought I was a pretty good size to double lead actors, but so many of these big American films would come to Australia and they'd bring all the doubles from the US. The stunt coordinator would come from the US and the stunt doubles would come from the US. Like when they did The Matrix 2 and 3, they brought 6 doubles for Hugo Weaving for all the clones. They were all 6'1" white guys, exactly the same size as me, and I could not get a day on that film. So then, eventually, after 8 years of doing stunts in Australia, I mean, I was now a working stuntman, but I had never done the run of a film. Everything was days or weeks here and there, on and off. And then eventually I'm like, I need to try and make the move to the US. My father was actually American, so I had a US passport. So that was a kind of a cheat that helped, made that step easier. But then once moving to the US, it's basically starting at square one. Nobody there knew who I was. And 8 years of doing stunts, I had a kind of decent resume, but back to square one. And it's funny you say hustle, because that is literally the term in the US. Back then, like now it's not so much, but back when I started in the US, there was a term called hustling, where you would literally sneak onto the sets and introduce yourself to the stunt coordinator. So you'd find out where things are filming and sneak on the set. Like even the ADs and the PAs knew that that's what stunt people do, because you would show up and they could tell this is somebody that doesn't belong here, that's trying to meet the stunt coordinator, and they'd guide you in the right direction, and then you go and meet the stunt coordinator and try and not mess up their day. Like it was a fine art of getting your name out there, but not being a pain in the ass. And usually I would just show up and go, "Hi, I'm Daniel Stevens. Can I leave my stuff with you somewhere?" Like it's also awkward that you don't want to hand a headshot and a resume to a stunt coordinator who's standing on set, and now they've got to hold this stupid piece of paper. So I'm like, "Can I leave this somewhere for you?" And try and get out of there as quick as you can.
I suppose it's not handed to you, is it? I mean, if you really want something, you've got to go after it, and you've got to keep going after it. But I suppose that once you're on that sort of level, I suppose work. I mean, is it a case of like work is coming in for you now? You're at the level where you're actually working on these big blockbuster movies. Is it a case of you're comfortable now with getting work, or is it always going to be a case that you've got to literally have your feelers out and be hustling still?
I am at a stage now where I'm comfortable to turn down jobs, so that's kind of, now I know I'm at a place where I'm happy. It just depends where it is and what's happening, and especially now that I've got a family and I got kids, and it's before I would just take every single job that's offered, but now it's the family definitely comes first, and I'm not as worried about turning down a job because I know something else will come along.
Interesting that you say family, because being a stuntman, there is always a level of danger. So has your approach to stunt work changed since you've had kids, in the way of putting yourself in potential? I know the stunt industry has become extremely safe, and safety is paramount now, but there is always an element. I mean, has that changed your view on things since you've had a family?
I don't think it has. It's more now, it's just the old age thing, like knowing that when I hit the ground it's going to take a lot longer to recover. But I don't feel like I'm in danger of my life being taken. Maybe that's not a good view to have, but it's still kind of, I still feel the same mentality doing big stunts. It's more about how my body's going to hold up, whether I can keep doing it long enough. But I'm not worried about serious injury. Touch wood.
I don't mean like losing life. I mean more injuring yourself. So potentially, your work, might dry up a bit, but you do also coordinate. You're a coordinator. So for people out there, could you explain exactly what the role of a stunt coordinator is and what's involved with that?
Yeah, so once you've done stunts long enough, you should be able to be qualified to be able to coordinate stunts, which is basically setting up the action, hiring the right people, making sure everything's safe to do the stunts, and designing action and working with the director to help fulfill their vision. Working with the director to help fulfill their vision. So you're in more of a creative role, and you're not the guys doing the stunts anymore. Which is, you're also doing a lot more paperwork and budgets and meetings and behind the scenes stuff, which is quite a change from being a physical hitting the ground guy and then just going home at the end of the day. So it is definitely quite a change moving to coordinating, but it's also, for me, I like it being on set and being in that position of authority and using my experience over the years to help keep young stunt people safe and make stuff look cool. And it's also nice when you're on set and you're not the guy wearing a horribly uncomfortable costume and a wig and makeup and having to hit the ground over and over and over again just to get something right.
I mean, I often compare stunt performers with dancers because, like dancers, they get to a point where their body, sort of their joints, start to not be as supple, and a lot of dancers go into choreography. So I suppose it's quite a natural progression for stunt performers then to go into either coordinating or action design, and stuff like that. I mean, do you see a lot of that, with stunt performers actually going from actually being the one, in that uncomfortable rig into being in charge?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty natural progression. I mean, also for people that don't want to coordinate as well, people can also go into stunt rigging. So now you're the one setting up stuff as well. So you're behind the camera, and then you're not taking the huge hits and stuff, but you're still involved in the whole stunt process as well. But yeah, I mean, coordinating is not for everybody. It's a very different job to being a stunt performer. So yeah, a lot of people don't actually want to go towards coordinating.
I mean, let's talk about the reason why you're here is Deadpool and Wolverine. I only go to the cinema to watch certain films. And this film, I went to the cinema. I went to a cinema, the X Plus at Showcase Cinemas in the UK. And literally, this film from beginning to end was amazing. So entertaining. Action was just off the charts. And we see Wolverine come back, which is my all-time favorite character in the Marvel universe, hands down. So the fact that you've doubled for him, for so many films, it's an absolute honor to have you on the show because, the action in Wolverine just makes it for me. So how did you get that call to say, do you know what? Hugh Jackman's coming back and we need you again? Because after Logan, we didn't think that he was going to come back.
Yeah, it was as much of a surprise to me as it was to everybody else. I saw the video that Hugh and Ryan Reynolds posted announcing that they were coming. He was coming back for Deadpool 3, and I was just like, "This is insane." So then I messaged Hugh, and he's like, "Yeah, start getting ready." I'm like, "Wow, all right." So yeah, 6 months out from the job, basically, you got to get back in that shape again because I don't walk around looking like Wolverine all the time. Hugh doesn't walk around like that either. So for me, it's putting on 20 pounds of muscle, which I don't know what that is in your English measurements.
To be honest,
these days.
muscle, I don't understand. I haven't been to a gym. The last gym I went to, I'm sure he worked at a coffee shop, but you know what I mean? But yeah, I've got a picture here of you from Logan, which, yeah, I mean, the importance, I suppose, getting into shape, the proper Wolverine shape. How difficult is that? Because I know all Australians are genetically blessed. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the environment or the genes in Australia, but I've never seen an out of shape Australian. So what was the secret in getting into this, superhero shape?
For me, I'm just naturally skinny. Like I was never a big guy. It was back when I did the first Wolverine, which was X-Men Origins Wolverine. I'd moved to the US and I actually started training with a bunch of stunt guys in LA that happened to be a place called 8711, which was run by Dave Leach and Chad Stahelski. And they just had a little stunt training facility back in the day. And so I just moved to the US. So I spent basically every day I could be in there helping out for free, just doing my thing for pretty much a year every day. And then eventually those guys got the first Wolverine to stunt coordinate. And that film happened to be going to Australia. And I was just basically begging Dave Leach, going, please give me this job. Like I'd actually been Hugh's picture double for a couple of commercials in Australia back in the day. And so then Dave Leach gave me the shot and yeah, put me on that film. And so that was the first time I ever had to, sorry. That was the first time I ever had to get in shape. Like, I mean, I was fit and I went to the gym, but I had never tried to put on a huge amount of muscle. And so that was it. Yeah. Like, thrown into the deep end, like just eat and train and eat and train and eat and train. And then I managed to, at that stage, it's pretty funny, I got up to 182 pounds, which for me was the biggest I'd ever been. And now, 17 years later, I'm walking around at 187 pounds. And then when I do Wolverine, I bulk up to 200 pounds. And then it comes back from there. So, but each time I've done the films, I've done 5 Wolverines now, which is insane to me. Each time you can get back to where you were pretty easy, and then you have to just push it further. And then each time, you get back there and push it further each time.
Do you know what? The biggest shock for me was seeing the state of Hugh in that movie. I mean, that guy, literally, I don't know that there's. I don't want to spoil it for anyone that hasn't seen it, but there is an end scene where you see him without any top on. Is that all Hugh, or could it have been a body double?
People keep asking me if that's me in that scene. I'm like, absolutely not. Like that, my abs have never looked like that. That's insane. And he spent so much time training for it. There's no way he'd let anybody else do that. There's no way he would let a body double be in that scene. Like he literally trained nonstop for that. And he trains like a bodybuilder, and he knows in the schedule what day is going to be his shirtless day. So that's essentially like competition day for a bodybuilder. So he has a trainer with him full time, and he's also got a personal chef literally handing him the perfect macro-based diet of what to eat every day, every meal. And when it's done like that, it's not easy, but it's simple when you just follow the rules, and people are planning it all for you. But he still has to put in the work. But he doesn't have to think about, oh, what is my snack going to be? What am I going to eat here? Like all of that stuff, which makes it so much harder for just, let's say, a regular person that doesn't have that at their
What makes me really proud of Hugh, though, I saw a report that he said in an interview that he did get offered steroids for this film, and he turned it down because he wanted to do it old school, which I was really surprised that, one, he got offered that, and 2, I'm really pleased that he turned it down. But I'm sure there's lots of 55-year-olds out there wishing to be in that shape, which is just glorious to see. And hopefully, fingers crossed for you as well, that we see him again, because am I right in saying that he's going to be appearing in Avengers Secret Wars?
I don't know if they've been confirmed. I don't know if any of that's been announced so far. I've just seen stuff about Robert Downey Jr. coming back, which is insane.
Victor Doom. So what was the craziest stunt that you did on the actual film then, Deadpool and Wolverine? Because literally, it's one of those films that as soon as it comes out on 4K, I'm buying it, because it's one of those films that I feel that, if you blink, you miss something, because there's so much happening. I mean, what was your favourite part to film in a stunt capacity in that film?
Well, I'm like you. I'm definitely going to be buying it as soon as it comes out, because I went to 2 screenings the first 2 nights, and the fans were just going absolutely insane that I feel like I missed half the jokes because they were laughing so much at the gag before. You couldn't hear the next 1 or 2 jokes. It was amazing to be in a cinema like that. But for me, it was more, we did some really interesting moves with Wolverine. There's the fight in the void. We just, like, the fight choreo guys came up with this cool move where he like runs on all 4s and then does this kind of, I don't even know how to describe it. It's almost like a breakdancing backsliding move where Wolverine slices Deadpool's guns in half. Like, that move for me was one of my favorite moves on there. So it was wire assisted. So it was, perfect sync with the riggers, and it was just a really cool move that I've never seen Wolverine do before.
I mean, how do you capture the essence of Wolverine then? Because obviously you've done so many films and you've doubled for so many people, from Star-Lord to the Winter Soldier, So when going into becoming Wolverine again, how do you mimic Hugh Jackman? So when it's sort of not Hugh, it's you, and we wouldn't know, because obviously the secret is to not know he's got a stunt double, and we all believe that it's Hugh Jackman doing all these wonderful, magnificent things. I mean, how do you go around mimicking him? Is it got to the stage now where you know him inside and out?
Well, it's funny because that is part of being a stunt double, especially if you show up on a film and it's like you're halfway through, or a TV show that's been established and you now need to move like the actor. But with something like Wolverine, when you're there from the start, and like we've done so many films together, like Hugh, when he moves as Wolverine, is actually moving like me. Because we're like the fight team and the stunt doubles are the ones training them for the fights. So they come in and learn all the choreo from the stunt people. So it's actually not the stunt people copying them as much as the actor that may may not have done any physical stuff before or martial arts specifically, that are going to start mimicking the stunt people and moving like them. So then it's a kind of a collaboration. And then the actor, once they learn the moves, might add their flavor, and they'll say like, I think the character should move like this, and they'll like help guide it. So it's definitely a collaboration rather than one person completely influencing the other. It's complete collaboration through the process.
I mean, filming this must have been an absolute hoot from being on set and being off set. Is there any moments that you can share, like memorable moments of working on this with certain cast members or a certain day, to give us a bit of an insight of what it was like actually to work on this film?
I mean, how many spoilers do you want to give away in this one? I mean, I guess the film's been out a couple of weeks. It's made $1 billion, so anybody that wants to see it has probably seen it already. But it was funny when I first read the script. Everybody's character was in a code name. So then I'm trying to decipher who these characters are, and I had no idea that Jon Favreau was in it as Happy Hogan. The way it read, I wasn't sure if it was going to be Tony Stark in the film. But then when it got to Blade, there was something. It said something. There was the joke about him being the only one there's ever been, and then Deadpool said under his breath, mumbles Mahershala. I'm like, oh my god, they've got Wesley Snipes in this movie. Like, this is absolutely mental. Like, it's one of the coolest cameos ever, and especially knowing, I mean, the stories of Ryan Reynolds and Wesley Snipes on Blade 3. They didn't get along the best. It sounded like a pretty troubled shoot. So the fact that they got Wesley to come back for this one was phenomenal. And then the same thing once we're on set in the arena, and Channing Tatum and Jennifer Garner and Daphne Keane and Wesley Snipes were all there. It was unbelievable. I mean, it was just fan geekdom off the charts. It was amazing.
Do you know what? Watching this, it's like that meme of Leonardo DiCaprio. You know, when he's pointing at the screen. It was a bit like that, because you're pointing at all the cameos, going, oh my god, I know that. No, and literally, it was just crazy on what they pulled off, and I just think it shows how much weight Deadpool and now Wolverine has as sort of a bromance on screen of what they can, put together, which is just absolutely stunning. I mean, obviously, with the film being out now, and you mentioned $1 billion, which is crazy. It's the second biggest film of this year, with Inside Out 2 just beating it. But I'm sure that it's actually going to go surpass that, definitely with the 4K release and everything like that. I mean, what was it like, putting the claws on again, and especially that iconic suit? Because that iconic suit, I'm not being funny. I mean, I've got a picture of you and Hugh together. Hugh, for some reason, there looks like he's had a hell of a day. I don't know. I don't know if that was shot at the end of the day, but he looks like he's been through a lot in that shot just there. But what was it like putting that suit on? Because it made the entire audience go crazy.
Oh, I mean, it was phenomenal. I mean, yes, because I've worked on them, but even as a fan, like, for me, Wolverine's one of my favorite characters. It's Wolverine and Batman are my two absolute favorite comic book characters. And then, the fifth time I've been lucky enough to work on a Wolverine movie, and there was never an excuse before to have the costume. And I know they were always trying to kind of weasel it in there somehow. And even at the end of the Wolverine, there was that end credit scene where he's on the plane and they hand him a case, and it has like a samurai Wolverine mask in there. Like, that was amazing. I'm like, he's got to wear the thing. Like, you can't just show it and then not wear it. So then, as soon as we did the first fitting for this over in the UK, I mean, it was unbelievable. I mean, it's so cool. I mean, wearing the claws is one thing, but then when you've got the glove on and now you put the claws on and they actually slot into the little grooves in the knuckles perfectly. I mean, it was so cool. And then the first time I got to try on the cowl was just, it was just a career highlight. It was so good.
So I once I don't know if you know, but in the UK there's like a holiday camp. Have you ever heard of Butlins? Which is like a holiday camp. It's like a low budget Disney. And they've got 3 resorts in the UK where people go and they get entertained and there's shows on stage and everything like that. I'm proud to say I was the official Wolverine. So literally, I had from Marvel the proper muscle suit, the lycra outfit, all the yellow and everything, and the helmet. But the claws were these wooden claws that were attached to the glove. And honestly, I apologize to so many kids out there for poking eyes out and probably scarring them for life. But I'm sure they've put more effort into the costumes in this film. But it just looked epic, especially with the helmet on. I just thought it was brilliant. Please say that you kept a few pieces from that production.
I can say that I accidentally ended up with a set of Wolverine claws in my house somehow. Yes.
And is that to add to a series of claws, maybe from previous films? Have you got them all on the wall, with Pride?
I managed to get from 4 films. I missed out on Days of Future Past. I couldn't wrangle those, but yeah, I've got them from X-Men Origins Wolverine, The Wolverine, Logan, and now Deadpool Wolverine. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Do you know what? That is my dream to have some claws. I know that they get auctioned off every so often, but they go for tens and tens of thousands of dollars, and it's just crazy. People go crazy for props. Have you kept, do you keep mementos from all your films? I mean, taking aside Deadpool and Wolverine, because you've worked on so many things. I mean, do you collect like crew gifts and different props or costume pieces from different projects?
It's usually pretty hard to get stuff. I mean, the Wolverine stuff the claws are just the perfect size for accidentally slipping into your bag. So they're a perfect prop for that. But yeah, usually I haven't taken a lot of stuff. I managed to get a sword that Hugh used on Pan, the Peter Pan film that he did. That one was pretty tricky to get into a bag. Luckily, the blade came separate from the hilt, so you could kind of wrangle it in there. But yeah, I mean, the studios don't intentionally give stuff out because all that stuff goes into storage and then they use it for films down the line. Like, especially in Deadpool and Wolverine, you look around in the the void, there's Marvel bits from all the other films like just scattered around as set dressing. It's pretty crazy. So usually, those things are stored away. And when I worked on the Star Wars films, I mean, as soon as the lightsabers come out, everybody's eyeing those things. And the second they say cut, they take them and they put them in this huge tool chest, which is completely padlocked. And there's literally somebody guarding them the whole time because they know that is the kind of thing that is immediately getting sticky fingered out of there.
You couldn't mention a more of a protective sort of studio there. I had Brendan Wayne on, and he was saying that literally they are so tight with everything, security and everything like that, but it's understandable. But it's always better to ask for forgiveness than permission, Daniel. So you can always take it and say, do you know what, I bled for this, so I deserve it. So what is Hugh like? Because Hugh, I went to see him in concert because he is a multi-talented man, and my wife is absolutely totally in love with him. What is he like in person? Please say he's a horrible person. He's very rude, because that will make me happy.
Well, I hate to burst your bubble, but he's exactly like he is in all the interviews. Like that's not an act. Like he's just 24/7, just a nice, down to earth guy that's like super considerate. And every film I worked with him on, every Friday he does Lucky Friday. He walks around handing instant scratchy lottery.
I saw that, on social media. Yeah,
that's
awesome.
Like he's doing that forever, and he's always on time. He's never late. Like and it's so good working on his films because when he's number one on the call sheet, all the other actors have to step up. They see him being extremely professional and showing up when he should, and they all have to follow suit. I don't know, like back on the first Wolverine was the first time Ryan Reynolds worked with Hugh, and like that mentality rubbed off on Ryan, like seeing Hugh as the number one and just leading the ship completely professionally. And Ryan does the exact same thing. He's on time. He's there exactly when he's needed. He's not never being a prima donna and hiding in his trailer. And I mean, it's just amazing, like that Hugh quality spreading.
Which is really nice to hear, because there's, you know what, I've always said, if you read the news, no, if you don't read the news, you're uninformed. If you read the news, you're misinformed. And with, say, Ryan Reynolds, there are reports out there that people have difficulty working with him. And you know what, we're all different, and it's quite nice and refreshing to hear from someone that's actually worked with him on set that he's not like that at all. So I don't know where these people get these reports from, because it's unfair, because it's shining a horrible light on people. From what I've seen of Ryan, for what he does outside of his work, with charity and everything like that, I just think is commendable. It really, really is. But I can't wait to go to New York to go to the Laughing Man. Hopefully, fingers crossed, Hugh might be there. Who knows? So to get myself a nice cup of coffee. But I've got a couple of questions before we bid farewell. Has there been a stunt that you've performed that's left you weak at the knees afterwards?
Like from fear of the stunt?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like, oh my God, I don't want to do that again.
Well, usually it's more the fear before the stunt, and getting in your head, like even something as simple as this. I mean, simple as throwing yourself down a flight of stairs. Before it, you're like, this is going to be horrendous. Like, what am I doing? Why would any right-minded individual throw themselves down this set of stairs? And then they do the 3, 2, 1, go, and you do it, and you throw yourself down there, and you get bumps and bruises, and afterwards, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. So usually afterwards is when you're getting the calming phase. Like on the first Wolverine, doing Ratchet through a window that was like 50 feet up, and before it, I'm just thinking, man, this is craziness. But then afterwards, you've just got that, I just survived something insane, and the adrenaline, and I don't know, it's more of a euphoria after the stunt rather than the weak at the knees afterwards.
If I took you from your job right now in the industry and plopped you into an office-based job, how long do you think you'd be able to last at that job before you went crazy?
Well, that's the big transition to stunt coordinating. Like, I've never sat at a computer so long in my life. When you're sitting there in meetings that go for hours and hours and hours, I'm like, wow, I guess this is what it's like to be in an office and at a computer. There's definitely a transition phase. It's strange. I just need to get up and move around. Like, I can't sit still that long. I've got my back getting tight, my legs getting just weak, and I'm like, man, I don't know how people do it. But that's the reality.
I think
now.
You've got the coolest job in the world. I really do, and hopefully one day we'll see Oscars. You're obviously very, very busy. You've just finished working on The Old Guard 2. Which I absolutely loved the first one. Can you say anything on, is it going to be better than the first one from what you've seen? What's the action going to be like?
Yeah, there's some pretty badass action stuff in that one. It's funny, I mean, because it's probably on IMDb as the next thing coming out, but I actually worked on that 2 years ago. That we did the summer before Deadpool and Wolverine, but now it's been sitting on a shelf at Netflix. Like, because Netflix is so bizarre, they don't have a theatrical release schedule of when things are coming out, so they just build up their catalog, and who knows what they're thinking. Like, they had a change of management over there, so I don't even know when that film's coming out. But that was a fun one. That was in Italy for 3 months. We shot in Rome and Lake Como, and there's some really cool driving sequence around Lake Como. So yeah, there's going to be some pretty cool stuff in that one.
And then you've just finished on May Day as well. You're probably going to tell me that was 3 years ago now, but that's
no. That one actually was straight after Deadpool. So as soon as I finished working with Ryan on Deadpool, even though I was doubling Hugh, then I went to double Ryan on the next one again, up in Canada, which was meant to be set in Russia, but that was unseasonably warm there as well, and so they actually were running out of snow, even though it's meant to be snowy conditions in Montreal. But that one was fun, and I mean, I had a pretty cool stunt on that one, which I can't talk about yet, but maybe on the next podcast.
Definitely. And then how many more Wolverine movies have you got in you to double for Hugh? Because if you get that phone call for Avengers, how quickly are you going to say yes?
That's the thing. Like, I'm not getting any younger. But if it was Avengers, I think that would be cool because then it wouldn't all be Wolverine. He'd be one little part of it, and hopefully the action is spread out and lots of stunt people are taking a beating, and I could take just a small beating just to do the Wolverine thing again. It would be very cool.
That would be awesome to see, honestly, him in an Avengers movie. I mean, it just keeps getting better and better and better. But Daniel, thank you so much for coming onto the channel. It's been an absolute honor. Thank you so much. Keep safe, and I look forward to seeing your work in Mayday and Oh God 2, as well as all the other things that you're going to be working on in the near future.
Thanks, Brian. It's my pleasure.